Hey record nerds, check out the next level audiophile furniture at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop makes beautiful record furniture. I personally have a Sidetracked Workshop double sidekick in my house, and it's not only gorgeous, but incredibly practical. Check them out for yourself at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Don't keep your records in crates, and don't trust that feeble IKEA furniture. Give your vinyl the respect it deserves with furniture from sidetrackedworkshop.com. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 493 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And happy week after Record Store Day, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. I hope you were able to find some time on Saturday, April 12th, Record Store Day, to go out to an independent record shop and bring home some goodies, either some of the new issues or even buying some used ones off the wall. I ended up going to the Vintage Record here in Sydney, which carries no Record Store Day exclusive material, but it's an independent record shop, and it was important for me to get there and buy something in the racks. Well, actually, I bought something off the wall. It wasn't cheap. It was a Master's Apprentices fully signed LP, first pressing from 71, maybe 72. But I don't know a lot about the Master's Apprentices. I know they were a big deal here in Australia, and I thought, damn it, today's the day I'm going to learn about the Master's Apprentices, and I'm glad I did. It's a fantastic day for me, and I'm sure it was a fantastic day for record shops around the world. So I hope you did well. Hope you're happy with the loot you brought home, and I'm here today to share with you another opportunity, some other rare records that we're going to dive deep into, this time with Lance Barresi, who you may know from Permanent Records, or Permanent Records Roadhouse in Los Angeles. It's a great bar, record shop, and live venue. So Lance is here along with his partner in crime, Daniel Hall, who runs Riding Easy Records. And these two guys have been producing the Brown Acid series for 10 years now. We're celebrating the 20th trip of Brown Acid. They do 2 a year. So that's been 10 years since they released Volume 1. They're releasing Volume 20. But also on the show is Lenny Kaye. And Lenny Kaye, you may be aware of his work with Patti Smith. He's produced a ton of other bands. He's a songwriter. He's a performer. He's a maniac record collector. And he's also the creator of the highly influential Nuggets compilation from 1972. That was the record who brought out a lot of very obscure garage rock singles, and really the Nuggets compilation is known as the high standard of compilations. I mean, to this day, people still talk about Nuggets and the impact that the Nuggets compilation had. And it really got a lot of that great but hard to find music and obscure singles out and being able to be enjoyed by people around the world. So Lenny is here on the show as well to be able to talk about not only his Nuggets compilation, but also his appreciation for what Lance and Daniel are doing with Brown Acid. So we have a great chat today. Again, we're celebrating Volume 20, or the 20th trip of Brown Acid. And today we're going to talk about Lance and Daniel's detective work behind tracking down all these nearly lost recordings, negotiating with artists, the various regional music scenes that produced all these underground records, the stories of persistent licensing efforts, the challenges and struggles and triumphs that Lance and Daniel go through regularly to keep these Brown Acid compilations coming our way. And the latest version, number 20, is fantastic. My guidance would be to go to your independent record store and ask them for a Brown Acid 20th trip. If they don't have it, see if they could order it and get it through them. Now, if you can't get it through an independent record shop, if there's no way you could do it, then head over to writingeasyrex.com and secure one, as well as grab some other stuff from Riding Easy Rex. They've got the Fraction Moonblood LP, the reissue that just came out last year. It sounds fantastic. other bands like Mondo Drag and the Death Wheelers, and about 19 other trips of brown acid you could explore as well. So that's writingeasyrex.com, but check with your independent record shop first to see if they could help you out. And by the way, there is an extended version of this interview available only to our Patreon legends. Patreon.com/Vinyl Guide is where you go. You know, if you help support this show for $5 or $10 or $20 or even more, you get things like extended interviews. You get commercial-free episodes. You get high-resolution audio files, and we try to give you a whole lot more. We do some giveaways, some other fun stuff. So if you want to do your buddy Nate a solid here and you want to hear some extra material, head up to patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. Help support the show, and we will be forever grateful. Alrighty, enough of the yakety-yak. Let's get to our conversation with Daniel, Lance, and Lenny about the 20th trip of brown acid. All right, so gentlemen, thank you for joining us here. We got Daniel Hall, Lance, of course, for Permanent Records, and Mr. Lenny Kaye here, and we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking brown acid. First, before we start, I think Daniel, happy 12th anniversary of Riding Easy.
Thank you very much. Yep, it pops up and reminds me every year on Facebook that it's been 12 years. So here we are, or each year anyways, getting longer. So
all right,
thank you.
Congratulations, and we should be thanking you for your sweat and releases there. And we're here to talk a bit about Brown Acid Volume 20. Lenny, when Daniel and Lance said let's get Lenny on the phone too, my thought was like, how does he wrap into the Brown Acid series? How did you stumble upon this compilation set?
Well, as I said in the introduction to Volume 20, the big hoopla. I was just in a music store that was on, I believe it was East 4th Street, called Other Music in Manhattan. You know, I'm just wandering around, seeing what's around. And I saw this album called Brown Acid, Songs from the American Come Down, Volume 1. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting concept. And I've always had a predilection for these kind of proto hard rock bands that flourished in the early 70s, the time of that particular American Come Down. And so I bought it and brought it home and was kind of blown away. And it struck me at the time that it awakened a sense of genre to me that I hadn't really understood. You know, I knew that there were bands like Dust and, you know, here in America, and Sir Lord Baltimore and Budgie over in England, and but I never really saw it as a kind of, as I like to say, a bin, you know, a classification in a record bin. And it really kind of gave me a sense of surprise, in the same way that I think maybe people, when they first saw Nuggets, kind of became aware of garage rock as a thing, as opposed to, you know, a kind of random records. It was quite a revelation, and I continued to buy every volume that came out. Level of quality was amazing. And then, of course, I got to meet Lance at a WFMU record fair and tell him how much I dug the thing, and now we're fast friends. We're in the same mosh pit together.
Nuggets is like, I don't know, was it colloquialism? It's a brand name that's become synonymous with the like with Xerox or Hoover.
I mean, Jac Holzman had the idea. He had a really good, you know, from Elektra Records, who kind of put me on the case. It was his idea, and you know, he gave me about 3 examples of the kind of things he was looking for. One of them was a song called Endless Tunnel by Serpent Power, which is 11 minutes long and kind of rambling and banjo driven. And there was a group called Circus something, you know, with a song called The Wind, a kind of a jazz rock thing, and a little Anthony and the Imperials track from their psychedelic album. But he didn't really have any sense of what he wanted. He just gave it to me, and I just put together a record of all my favorites. And really, I mean, in the end, that's a beautiful thing, that people were moved by it and empowered to start bands, especially since, you know, at that time it was all about progressive rock and, long form stuff. And there was a kind of feeling among music fans, including Greg Shaw from Bump Records, that things needed to be brought back, to kind of the short, sharp, 2-minute, 3-minute single, bam, 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 that groups like the Stooges and the New York Dolls would also pick up upon. And then, of course, that would open the way to the punk explosion, that sense of getting back to basics and the grassroots.
Mm-hmm. Now, Lance, I'm assuming you and Lenny have talked about what makes a good comp and maybe the techniques of being able to find the different bands for Brown Acid. And I want to go through Brown Acid 20 track by track because I think it's a stellar record. It really is. And there's a lot to talk about there. But just overall, have you guys discussed the techniques or even shared guidance or picked up some wisdom from Lenny in terms of how you construct Brown Acids?
Well, that's interesting. Lenny and I have never actually had that conversation, but I will say that I've obviously very heavily influenced by Nuggets and everything Lenny Kaye has done. Lenny?
Oh my God, my own Nugget.
If the listeners are not already familiar with the Link Cromwell 45 Crazy Like a Fox, you have to check that one out. Lenny, you're a legend to me and many other record lovers and music lovers alike. You've done so much great stuff over the years. Nuggets is just the tip of the iceberg. So thank you.
Ralph. I appreciate it because, I am crazy.
You and me both, brother. I think that's how we both got ourselves into this mess, right?
Well, we love music. That's the thing. I mean, bottom line, and I don't care what genre it is. I listen to, a lot of reggae. That's kind of my go-to these days. But, if you find like the 20 or the 100 greatest songs in any genre, you're going to have a great time. And that's what I think Brown Acid has done is it uncovered this mine. It's almost like, oh, this is the Silver Lode or the Gold Rush or whatever. And you've been mining it. And I have to say, over the 20 volumes, you think, oh, yeah, I've even seen it with garage rock is that, you find the top shelf and then it's like kind of generic stuff. People come up to me at record fairs, I have a great garage record. And I think, yeah, it's a great garage record, but is it a great record? And, I was into putting great records on Nuggets and I'm just amazed at the level of quality you guys have been able to maintain over all these volumes. There's not, one volume that I think, they were just, filling up space. It's just one great wacky hit after another.
That's interesting because with Nuggets, you said Jac Holzman went and he got the rights for the songs that you chose, Lenny. Yeah. And to me, it was almost kind of like the first press of olive oil is always kind of the strongest, right? And I know Brown Acid, I agree with you. Volume 20, I think is probably one of my favorites so far. The quality stayed up there. Were there a lot of tracks that you had earmarked for Nuggets that unfortunately didn't get the rights or didn't make it that you may have wished were part of it?
Well, I did. I mean, I gave them a volume 2, but by then Jac had left the company and the lawyer, Michael Kapp, who had really done an amazing job of tracking down the rights to all these rogue tracks, he had also left. He had been bumped somewhere and they just never got it together. But, thankfully, Rhino Records on the 50th anniversary, 50 years, that's insane. Decided to do a box set where they took my original list of volume 2, plus the ones that I couldn't get for volume 1. I couldn't get 96 Tears, the text of garage rock. I couldn't get I See the Light by the Five Americans. I couldn't get Talk Talk by the Music Machine, but they were able to do it. So they were able on the volume 2 to fulfill my original vision. And then on the bonus disc for the box set, they put some of the weirder ones that I always, that I actually had on the original list of Nuggets, but didn't fit conceptually. I mean, Going Back to Miami by Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders. Now that is an insane record. It would not quite have been within the concept of Nugget. And of course, Crazy Like a Fox by Lynn Cromwell. I was able to, give him his little moment of illumination. But, I have to say, all the records that came after, Back from the Grave and Pebbles and Boulders and all the archaeology, that's what I was hoping with Nuggets. If you look at the original liner notes, it was like, okay, now go forth and find those weird records. And so, all of these incredible, insane groups from all over America that might have had a pressing of 200 or 500 or, a one shot that was never heard from again, they have been found. And that's what excited me about the Brown Acid series, is that all of a sudden, Lance and Daniel are out there, with their with their shovels, uncovering these jewels of musical mania. And really fantastic stuff that deserves to be heard. These groups really should be memorialized and understood and taken to heart. And that's what I love about the Brown Acid series. It's like, who would have heard of any of these groups except you found them? You went out into the jungles and brought them back alive.
Yeah. And I think also too, one of the nice things about it is because the Brown Acid sort of as a brand essentially is sort of like it's like kind of Lenny, what you're saying, it's become its own sort of like subgenre of like, oh, it's like a Brown Acid song. Because we have that, it's now given us a broader reach, so that when we have these more obscure tracks and then we include them on the compilation, if we were to just put out a reissue 7-inch by itself per se, it wouldn't get near the amount of eyeballs, just because it's like not grouped in with sort of this sort of trusted sort of batch of tunes. You know what I mean? So thank you for noticing that, though. That's hearing it come from you it's such a pat on the back. So thank you.
Man, I go down to Main Street Jukebox every time one comes out and put my money on the table and take a picture. So
no, I know you've been the number one cheerleader. It's been really great.
So Daniel, has the concept or the approach to Brown Acids changed that much since the first trip?
No, not really. But I will say I'm with you. I think that if we started to feel like we were running out of gas, I think we would just call it, because it would be like, well, why, it's like, the first movie is great, and then the sequel's kind of not as good. And then by the time it gets to the fourth or fifth one, you're like, God, just stop already. You're ruining that legacy. So one of the things that both Lance and I have been pretty conscious about is making sure that, like, okay, does this batch of songs stand up? Like, is there still, and there's obviously, as with every comp, there's at least 2 or 3 maybe standout tracks, but then, and there's some stuff in there, I'm not going to call it filler, but maybe it's not as strong, but it's still cool and it's good. You know what I mean? And so I think the biggest surprise for me is that, and I think for Lance as well, when we started this, I think in my head, I saw 3 or 4 of these coming out. I didn't, and it just kept coming. And then, it's like that old saying, if you build it, they will come. And then all of a sudden, then other people are saying, hey, you guys know about this track, but, there's this band that was playing with that band at the same time. Have you heard that? And then it's like, oh, well, that's my uncle's band. Check this out. And then, like, or we do get a license, a track from a band, and then to find out, like, there's a whole record that was recorded that never even got released. And so, like, that's what the Spiny Norman record is, and that's what Ice is, and that there was some offshoots of the Brown Acid stuff that I was like, holy shit, like this is all in release. How did this never come out before? So, it's definitely been a fantastic wild ride, and there is no way, I don't think that Lance or myself 10 years ago would have thought we would be at this point. I just don't think we did. But again, you just keep checking things out and keep an open mind, and Lance is definitely relentless with the shit, and here we are. So
I know you guys have a list of artists you're chasing for Brown Acid series. You know, a bunch of different records in play, and
Yeah.
they come to fruition when they do. And
Yep.
then, do you find that list growing, shrinking, staying about the same?
The list is constantly growing. The only issue is that we can't put out more than a couple of these things a year. So we're constantly licensing new tracks for the series that may never actually make it out, because if we keep doing this every 6 months, Daniel and I are going to be dead by the time we actually get these things out. So that's really the only challenge, is like getting each track comped in a reasonable amount of time after we've licensed it. We just did we went through the tracks we have licensed that we haven't released recently, because we're thinking, we're coming up on the 10th anniversary. We got 20 volumes of this. Like, how much longer do we continue to do this? And Daniel and I have always been like, if people still want it, we'll keep doing it because we like it. And if other people do and it sells well, then why the hell not, right? But the trouble is, you can't do one every week, even though we could almost license one every week and have another 12 volumes out this year easily. We have 200 tracks sitting waiting for their chance to be included on
there's some stuff that we literally licensed for the first trip, or like, okay, well, let's just grab like, these songs or whatever, and then not all of them made the first trip, and then bet some stronger material came in. It's like, oh well, then they kind of got pushed off the side. But anyways, there is some stuff that we licensed 10 years ago that we still have not put onto a comp. But I think that they will eventually get there. I just, it's just been about like, wow, this is exciting. Or, Lance will get a hold of something. There's been some licenses that have taken 5 or 6 years to get going. Like literally, the initial email comes, then the guy, or just pushes it off, or what happens is somebody's passed away, and then who their relative, a wife, or somebody, next of kin will be like, I was looking through my dad's inbox and I saw this sitting here. We should do this. Like, he should be on this. And then it kind of comes from that too. But sometimes some of those things happen after people have even passed away. And so, it's obviously, time is definitely of the essence right now. A lot of these bands that, recorded stuff over 50 years ago, some of these guys are starting to pass away. And so it's like, I think in the next 10 years, I think most of them will be gone.
Forever. Garage walkers. Come on.
Not you, Lenny. You're immortal.
I'm getting younger.
That's right.
He's a Highlander.
That's right.
So since the very first trip, you said you were thinking about maybe less than half a dozen would come out. And I imagine you're genuinely surprised at the uptake and the eagerness for a lot of these bands to be involved. What are some of the hard lessons you guys learned from the first couple trips?
Hard lessons. Wow. I think what Daniel was just alluding to is one of the lessons we learned really early on is you need to be persistent, because time is of the essence, right? None of us are getting any younger. And some of these folks literally have passed away since we've licensed the tracks, and we've come along, just weeks after someone passed away and have only just found out that they died, days before we got in touch to license the track. So from day one, once the first one came out and it was a success, and Daniel was like, get to work, we got to get a second one of these together. My MO has been pedal to the metal, just license as much of this material as we possibly can before it's too late. We'll figure it out once it's been licensed. We'll get it out there in due time. Yeah. But what you can't do, and one is license a track when you can't get permission. And someone passing away is one of the biggest hurdles to making getting the license.
Absolutely. We've also had a few things where it was tracks that we were absolutely in touch with. We were way ahead of the curve. and then all communication sort of ceases, and then we see another labels releasing the track, and it's like, oh well, that makes that explains why nobody was getting back to us anymore. So, I mean, it's all good. I mean, there was a little bit of competition, it would be a little boring, I guess, but that's the way it goes.
So, any unmitigated disasters, things that maybe were tough at the time, but you could laugh at now?
I don't know about a disaster, but the the track "You Come On Like a Train" by Dick Rabbit on the 19th trip. I've been in touch with Gordon Thayer since before the first volume came out, and I asked him if we could license that track because it's one of my favorite records that we've comped on Brown Acid. It's an absolute banger. It's tough as nails, and it's just super unique. And so I've been after it since day one, and he just said, "Hey, thanks for reaching out, but I'm not interested." And he didn't really have a reason why, and he just kept pushing it off. So I would just check back in every few months. "Hey, Dick, how you doing?" Or I'm sorry, "Hey, Gordon, how you doing?" The band name is Dick Rabbit. And "I'm doing well. Thanks for checking in. Still not interested." So I'm like, all right, I'm just respecting the fact that you don't want to be involved in this for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I just check back literally every few months for 9 years.
Wow.
It took 9 years to get that song on a Brown Acid compilation. And one day it was the biggest surprise of my life. He just reaches out to me out of the blue, unprompted, which he had never done before. And he's like, "Hey, Lance, let's go for it. I'm ready to go ahead and license that track for Brown Acid." And I was just like, "What? It's happening. I can't believe this."
I think Lance called me immediately. He's like, dude, you are you at your computer right now? I need you to drop what you're doing. I need you to send this license. You don't know how long this has been going on. We need to get this one in the end zone. I'm like, okay, we're on it, dude. So, yeah. Yeah, there hasn't been any big scuffles. There's been a couple of guys who's come out of the woodwork saying, "Why are you using this song? Like, who gave you the right?" And then we would just say, "Well, it was your band member, and here's his." "Oh, they're cool with it. Okay, that's fine." You know what I mean? I think a lot of these guys, have drifted apart as life happens, and they haven't talked to one another or whatever. So I think some assume that it was just, not done in good, on the up and up. And then as soon as we drop the right names, and they're like, "Yeah, I mean, here's everything that's happened," and that's pretty much been the end of that. So there's not been any.
Yeah. So recently, last year, you guys put out the Fraction Moonblood record, which
Yes.
completely sought after. It was a fantastic reissue. When it comes to Brown Acids, what is the perhaps rarest or most valuable single that has made its appearance on a Brown Acid comp?
That's an interesting question, Nate, because some of these records haven't sold for ever on Discogs. They have no sales history. And I know we're going to go through this track by track, but the Frozen Sun track that's on Brown Acid, the 20th trip, that record, the stats on Discogs are just astronomical, right? 0 sales history, no copies in the marketplace for sale. 6 people have it and 161 once. So the supply and demand situation with records, a lot of the records on Brown Acid is completely flip-flopped, and you never know what any one of these is going to sell for until it comes up for sale on eBay. And some of the records that we've comped have gone for thousands of dollars.
And sometimes the record's selling for $30 or $40, and then we comp it, and then it's immediately at the $500 mark. You know what I mean? So people they just didn't know about it. Now they know about it. Oh my God, I got to get that original. And then
that's funny. So there's the Brown Acid bump.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look, something like that happens when I profile a record here on the podcast. A lot of times, once we profile something, it puts it on the radar of so many other people, and then all of a sudden you see the value go up. So if you were at a record fair, we won't say Austin or wherever, right? And you've got every Brown Acid single on the wall behind you. Which one do you think would be the one that would go for the most?
Maybe that Master Dance, dude. The Master Dance one might be, because there's like less than 100 of those apparently. So I know that's a pretty highly sought after one.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the ones that actually do have sales history are Peace Pipe, The Sun Won't Shine Forever. That's worth upwards of $1,000. The Grapple Ethereal Genesis 45, that's an almost 4-figure record. It's crazy. And, Nate, I'm watching eBay auctions for these kinds of records all the time. And these things just keep going up and up and up. It's absolutely bananas. Most of them are worth hundreds at this point, and some of them are, creeping up into the 4-figure realm. It's bananas. And just to kind of go back a step, I think there's only 2 records from the Brown Acid, the 20th trip, that you can even go on Discogs and buy right now. All the others have no copies available for sale. So really what somebody is willing to pay at auction is what will determine how expensive these things will get. It's just bananas.
Mm-hmm.
It's blown my mind. I remember in the early days of buying these records, I was like, 200-300 was like my max. And now it's like, if a copy of one of the 45s that I don't have, like, for example, the Looking Glass, take the time. If that came up for sale, I would not hesitate to put in a 4-figure high bid. I just have to have that, So it's been phenomenal and kind of a blessing and a curse. I have a lot of these 45s, but now any of them that I don't have, I'm having to pay through the nose for.
I just watched Lenny's reaction when you said that. Lenny, you ever pay 4 figures for a record?
No, I haven't, to be honest. I still, I would, I'm not that into having the original. I'd like to hear it. And if it's, I'll pay up to 100 or 200 if there's something I'm insane about. I think, I paid, there was a 45 by an R&B group called The Webs. I can't access the title in my brain.
It's
but
so hard to break a habit.
That's the one of the gorgeousest songs of my life. But I can listen to I can listen to it on Brown Acid, which is fine. I don't need to see it, but I know the fidelity on the 45 is just slightly better. But Lance, it's a business expense now.
Yeah, that's right.
You got it.
That's right. Right.
You can justify it.
I'm in Lenny's boat. I'm cool with listening to the Brown Acid version. I mean, it's cool if I can get one, but like, there's no way that $1,000 is gonna happen.
Well, one of the things that's kind of interesting about Brown Acid is the fidelity. I think is really, really good, and credit to you guys for not only making these records not sound like it's from an old record, because I think probably 90% of these are from a needle drop, I would imagine. But they sound consistent, one track to the other. It doesn't sound like, Detroit 69 and Albuquerque 74.
Yeah, we got to thank Nick Townsend for that. Nick Townsend dumps in all of those records and he masters them and spends quite a bit of time cleaning them up. And yeah, so Nick Townsend, he's our mastering guy and he does a fantastic job. So.
And kudos to Daniel for spending the extra money on RTI pressings. They do a really great job up there. And Daniel could take his projects to any record pressing plant, but he goes exclusively with RTI, which is for the better for everyone involved, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do a great job for us.
And before we go into the track by track, are you guys seeing the consistency of record pressing kind of coming back? Is it pretty predictable now? I know for a couple of years it was a little bit all over the place.
As far as lead times go?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Things are definitely back to kind of how pre-COVID was. I think there's a few factors in on that. One, there's more plants now. Like there's a lot more plants that have opened up. Two, I think the demand for vinyl has gone down a little bit. I think the rush has sort of happened. And it might be just because it's people have less money to spend these days. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, it's about from the time you turn in audio and artwork and everything, I'd say like you could pretty much count on having something in 10 to 12 weeks.
Okay. So you guys are shipping this on 420.
Oh yeah, we're actually getting them this week. So they'll be
like
shipping.
a dash.
I know you like that. So we'll be getting them.
On.
They will be here. They will be shipping probably before 420. So you actually can praise Jaw and listen into Brown Acid all on the same day. On Easter Sunday too. So there you go.
So people who pre-order now, will they get them a little bit early?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're getting them on Thursday, and they will probably start to ship. I don't know what Thursday is. They will ship way before 420. We're not gonna wait until they're gonna start shipping as soon as we get them in. So yes, we'll be getting them.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, good news all around. Okay, so I've gone through volume 20 again. Stellar work, guys. Great collection of songs here. Let's start with the top. AfterFlash, Cookbook. Now, one thing I noticed about a lot of the songs. Oh, he's got the record handy. Do you have every record that's been on a Brown Acid, Lance?
No, I have like 95% of them. There are a handful of just massive holes that I would love to fill, but just some of the copies of these records just haven't come up for sale since I've known about them. So we're talking over 10 years. Some of these have just never come up for sale. You don't see them in the wild. I go to record fairs all around the world. I go to record stores constantly. I'm at flea markets. I'm at, garage sales, estate sales. I buy out a whole estate's worth of records. And, the Looking Glass record that I mentioned earlier, Take the Time, or Factory Time Machine. I'd nenever seen one in the flesh, and there aren't copies available for sale at any price. So yeah, it hurts.
And the Frozen Sun record, which is on this one, we got sent the 1/4-inch tapes, so those didn't even come from a needle drop. Like he didn't even have a copy of those. He sent us the tape, and then we dumped them in, and then shipped the tape back. So.
Oh, okay.
I was offered a copy of that 45 recently for, I think the guy wanted $2,000. And I was just like, I'll pay a dumb price for stuff that I don't already have, but I'm not that dumb. I was born in the morning, but not this morning. You know what I'm
saying? So a lot of times, I guess in those handful of times, they send you a record, kind of maybe the only copy that they have, and you have to send it back. Is that how it works?
Yes, that's been times.
Sometimes.
Yeah, one of them I can't remember which one it was, but when they sent it to us, they sent it to me, and it was the 45, and it was put in a Ziploc bag. There was no paper sleeve or anything, and then it was put in like an envelope that you would like put like a check in, like this. You know what I mean? And then like no stiffener, like nothing. And I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh my God, like, did they really send it like this? Like, I was like mortified, but yeah, it's so, and of course it shows up fine. And then we go through hell and back to make sure everything's packaged nice. And then we'll still get a complaint that the corners ding. So I don't know how some of these things fly through like that. It's just beyond me. So
the angels have been looking after it. Okay. So back to AfterFlash. One of the things that I noticed on several of the tracks, on comp number 20, they're B-sides. They weren't the A-side that the band was kind of pushing. Or is that a regular occurrence? Like like you guys listened to the song that they thought was going to be the hit, and it's actually the song on the B-side that you guys use? Hey there, audiophiles. If you're seeking stylish furniture to showcase your stereo and record collection, well, look no further than SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop designs extraordinarily elegant record cabinets and consoles that add sophistication and panache to your music hobby. Handcrafted in the good old USA in the vinyl-loving city of Portland, Oregon, Sidetracked Workshop's designs are a music lover's dream. Made with real walnut veneered wood and brass accents, these gorgeous designs add class and taste to the record room and ship fully assembled assembled and ready to enjoy. Just check out the designs for yourself at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Look, you spend thousands of dollars on records. Don't keep them in a crate, and don't risk your records on those feeble wooden pegs from IKEA. Your music deserves the dignity of Sidetracked Workshop. That's sidetrackedworkshop.com. Elegant solutions for the vinyl lifestyle. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VINYLGUIDE10. One of the things that I noticed on several of the tracks on comp number 20, they're B-sides. They weren't the A-side that the band was kind of pushing. Or is that a regular occurrence? Like you guys listened to the song that they thought was going to be the hit, and it's actually the song on the B-side that you guys use?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty typical. And especially when it comes to major label 45s in this genre, the B-side is usually the track that the band was really excited about, or like the one that they played live that got people excited. But the A-side is the one that seemed more commercial and radio friendly, right? So they can go hog wild and get buck nasty on the B-side in a way that they couldn't on the single side, the A side, the radio side. And but these records, the privately pressed 45s that we've comped on Brown Acid, also usually have a ballad and one of these bangers on it. But what the difference is, the band got to choose which was the A side. So I don't think it's quite as common for the ballad to be the A side, but it does oftentimes happen where the B side is the one we want for Brown Acid.
Yeah, that maybe fits more the aesthetic of what the Brown Acid sort of thing is. You know what I mean? So
okay, fair enough. So Cookbook was a B-side originally. From what I understand, 500 of these singles were made. Is that kind of high for a lot of these private press ones? 500 copies?
That's average. I think that was in a lot of cases, the minimum quantity you could order from the record pressing plant back in the day for it to be cost effective, especially. And 500 in 1968 or all the way up till 1974, which is like the range of records that we're typically dealing with, that is a tiny, tiny number. That would be like pressing 20 copies today, because think about the numbers of records that major label bands were selling, or even local hits like 13th Floor Elevators or one of the bands off of Nuggets. A lot of those singles were regional hits and played on the radio and sold in the tens of thousands of copies, So 500 is really a tiny amount of records. And people, if you wanted to own that record back then, the only way you could hear it, or if you wanted to hear that record, the only way you could do that is by buying the record from the store that they were consigning it at, or off the stage at the show. So 500 went fast back in the day for the most part, if a band was successful or if they managed to stay together after the record came out, which unfortunately a lot of these bands did not. So.
Okay, because you were mentioning, I think some of the records were pressed in quantities of 100.
Yeah, those are the ones that are almost impossible. I mean, Lenny, what's your take on that? Like, as far as like back in the day when bands were doing 7-inches, like 500 to 1,000?
Well, when I did the first Patti Smith single, "Hey Joe" and "Piss Factory," and I was a little familiar with homebrewed pressings because I worked at Village Oldies. And a lot of the oldies stores, especially in the Northeast, would press up their own. They had their own labels to do a cappella doo-wop. Right. So when we did "Hey Joe," I had to go to Philadelphia to get it pressed, and I think we did an edition of 1,500. That's what we could afford. And I mean, there's been a lot of bootlegs since then, but I can recognize the original 1500 because when we got them back from the plant, if you look on the edge, it's gray. And because they used recycled vinyl,
Right.
And it was slightly pie plated as well. But, there's 1,500 of them, and that's all we pressed. And then, I can always say when I see the bootleg, it's very nice vinyl. And okay, it's really good. But, 1,500 was all we could afford.
Right.
Like a Kardashian. It looks nice, but it ain't the real thing. All right. Now, were any of these records on volume 20? Did any of them come in a picture sleeve?
No, but the Lazy Day track is off of an LP. So, yeah, I don't think, let me reference, there's too many records that we've comped, Nate. I can't keep them all in my frontal lobe anymore. But no.
Most of them are not picture sleeves. Most of them, most of them, I'd say 98% are pretty much just in it.
Picture sleeves were expensive. We didn't have a sleeve on Patty's. We had to wait until Sire reissued it to actually have a real picture sleeve on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just confirmed. None of them came with a picture sleeve. The Sandy Terreno came with a company sleeve from Platinum Records, so that's that. And then, of course, the Lazy Day track, which is LP only. Yeah.
Now, Polvo was a band out of Mexico. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have many international acts?
They're the first Mexican one. They're the first Mexican act that we've used. We've had bands from Australia and from Sweden, and the UK, and a few in Canada, but I would say most of it is US, right, Lance?
Yeah, there's a Belgian band as well, Opus Est. And that's primarily because a lot of the records that were released like this with the vibe that we're, going for are American private press 45s, So, yeah, this is the stuff from our own backyard. And they're just like the initial boom of garage bands after the Beatles played Ed Sullivan. These guys just came out at Altamont, both guns blazing, and it was just like unbelievable how many of them just came out of the garage with just a really, really heavy banging 45.
Is there any geographic area, location that seems to be richer for the sort of brown acid material than others?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's three big ones that come to mind immediately. First of all, shout out to Youngstown, Ohio, and Peppermint Studios. There were so many amazing records that we've worked with for brown acid that came out of that studio in this very, very short stretch of time. It's unbelievable. It's the Mecca. Youngstown, Ohio is the Mecca of brown acid. And then beyond that, Ohio in general was rich with all sorts of different kinds of great music being made. But for this stuff, Ohio's huge. Michigan is pretty massive, which makes perfect sense. You got the MC5 and the Stooges and the Amboy Dukes and all sorts of amazing rock bands coming out.
And Grand Funk Railroad.
And Grand Funk Railroad.
Yes, sir. The brown acid sound does not exist without Grand Funk Railroad. They are
absolutely
so underrated still to this day. And that's funny to say about a band that sold millions of records, but they deserve all the accolades anyone wants to throw at them. And then lastly, Texas. Texas has a very strong heavy rock contingent there in that time.
Now, Youngstown, Ohio and Detroit, I could understand because they're probably manufacturing hubs. And people had some expendable income. They could, they're banging fenders all day, and then at night they go home and bang another set of fenders, and they make some music. Texas too. Was Texas a manufacturing town, or what do you maybe credit that towards?
I think it's probably the same vibe. Lots of hardworking people, living in kind of inexpensive places, but with access to clubs to play in and studios to record in. I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Lenny, I mean, went back in the day. Do you remember any of these cities or just general regions that were kind of notorious for more of the like heavy rock side of things?
I mean, I always associate it with the Midwest. You know, you get out to the coast, and there's definitely more of an art vibe on either coast. It's a little more sophisticated,
Sure.
things. But in the Midwest, it seemed to be really like, down to the bone. You look at what happened in Detroit, with the Stooges and the MC5, and in my view, SRC as well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was kind of more local in a weird way. It wasn't like spun toward even the music business centers.
Right.
That's the amazing thing about CBGB to me, is that here you have a club in the middle of New York. 50 blocks away is the center of the music business, but you're there on Skid Row, outside of notice, and so something really underground, and these bands are kind of underground, gets a chance to flourish. I mean, on the West Coast, you had Blue Cheer, setting a new, I'd say a new height, but maybe a new low. I'm not really. And, but I mean, all of this was happening because I think it was a way for music to become proletarian. Um, Even punk rock had kind of philosophies behind it. You look at, Malcolm McLaren and the Sex Pistols, or even the Ramones, which are almost like a conceptual art project,
Sure.
and on, all the other bands. But out in the Midwest, it's kind of grittier. And Youngstown, Ohio, I mean, really, you're in the heartland there. And when you're in the heartland, that's the kind of music you make.
And I love the connection between the Ramones with Marky Ramone being Mark Bell, the drummer
From Dust. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and Joey Ramone wanting to be a glam artist. I mean, they're all crazy, right?
I think my favorite track on Brown Acid 20 is, and I'm not even sure I'm saying this band name right, Osage Lute?
Osage.
Osage Lute.
Lute.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, fuck
I'm
me.
from
All right.
I'm from Missouri, Nate. We keep it simple there, and Osage Lute is from Missouri.
Okay, Osage Lute. So a hometown band for you. Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Osage Lute is an incredible one. Not only am I super proud to have this one on Brown Acid because they're from my home state. There's the 45 in case anybody's doubting whether I have it or not. They included a gentleman with amongst their ranks named Mike Lusher, and he played drums in Osage Lute. And this 45 is absolutely incredible, and I've had it in my collection for a long time. But until I tried to track this band, I had no idea that Osage Lute had ties to Backjack, ties to Parchment Farm, and the Max Creek Band. These same half a dozen musicians all played in those four bands in Missouri.
Right.
And Osage Lute 45 and the Backjack 45 are the only, well, the Max Creek Band LP came out too, are the only things they ever released. So Backjack has a whole LP worth of material. Parchment Farm has a whole LP worth of material. And both of those LPs came out on Riding Easy not so long.
Last year. And Mike Lusher, who is the drummer and some of the stuff on both those records, but he really is the band's historian and took meticulous notes, saved every single flyer, every single newspaper clipping, had old Super 8 video of them rehearsing, just everything you would ever want when somebody's like, we have unreleased recordings, but then we got this whole box of shit too. And you're like, are you fucking serious? It's just mind blowing. But yeah. So that Osage Lute that's another sort of thing where it kind of, and Parchment Farm and Backjack started out as Brown Acid licenses to find out that they had unreleased albums too.
But you guys put the albums out before this single came to light. And
With
so,
Brown Acid 18, I believe, had the back jack on one side and Parchment Farm on the other side, and then literally like that dropped in April, and then May came out back jack, and Parchment Farm came out in June. It was just like, let's just get it all out right now while people are learning about it. So
fuck, that song is just
Yeah.
smoking. So it's 6 minutes
Yep.
plus, I think, on a 45, which is not advised, kids.
Nope.
Did you guys have a tape of it, or was it a needle drop that you got?
There's a
That?
needle drop, and then Nick Townsend worked his magic, and it sounds fat.
I know.
It does not sound like shitty at all. It sounds fantastic, actually.
Incredible. Yeah, that's one that I had to go back a few times. It's like, oh man, that is that is a killer track. Watch him shine. Is the A side available? Scoot Shooter.
We're gonna. Well, you heard it here first, Nate. That'll be on a future volume of Brown Acid when we can finally get to it. We try to parse them out a little, especially tracks by the same artists. I think it's also worth noting before we forget to that there's only one repeat artist on the 20th volume. Frozen Sun is the only one that has been on a previous volume of Brown Acid. So this is all completely fresh artists that we've never comped before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Osage Loot 45 is a 2-sider. Both sides are banging. And we will be releasing Shoot Scooter on a future volume. So stick to it for that.
Very cool. So Frozen Sun, you mentioned, and you said that's a really hard one to find. Jam Part 1, again, another B-side. These guys are out of Tucson, Arizona. They only printed 100 of these records, so probably 90 of them have been sun damaged by now. On Captain Zumar Records. Now, when you connect with a band like Frozen Sun, do you kind of ask them a little bit? Do you get like, why do you call it Captain Zumar Records? What's the history behind some of these things? Do you look to get those facts out of them?
We do as much of that research as we possibly can, but unfortunately, Frank Casanova is no longer with us. He was
a name, Frank Casanova.
Yeah, he was the arranger and the producer also. And we do ask these kinds of questions, and unfortunately getting answers out of these guys is like pulling teeth. And, we just only have so much time to try to actually get them to talk. We offered a lot of these artists interviews with different publications, and they're just not tech savvy. So they can't do an email interview. They need to talk to people over the phone. And a lot of people that are willing to do those interviews aren't willing to do it that way, and so on and so forth. So, we ask the questions and rarely get the answers. I think when we talked about Fraction, we told you, we asked Jim Beach, can you please talk to us? Tell us more about what it was like back then. And he just doesn't want to talk about it. It is what it is. So we try to be respectful of people's privacy. A lot of these guys don't remember the details. They'll be like, oh, I know it's on Captain Zumar because we printed it on there, but I couldn't tell you why we decided to call it that.
I mean, there's a vast way of finding out about stuff, too. I mean, I remember when I did the original Nuggets, some of the groups I had no information on. I didn't know who. I had to make up a biography for the Magic Mushroom. I had no idea who they were. And there was no way to find out. Now, there's a plethora of information on the Webonet that if you're interested in anything, you can at least maybe find out who's in the band or where they're from. But, I reminded me of when, early doo-wop records, which was my first love. And before, there were magazines like, Bim Bam Boom and other ones like that. You had no idea who these bands were. You'd have to be, go through old issues of Billboard and Cashbox. And, so the information that's available now for all of these bands is incredible. Because a lot of them, they're just a name on a label, and you have to kind of figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's not even the full name. It'll just give the first initial and then their last name. So you don't even, you don't know, So
it's a Bob or a Bill or any Barry or whatever. Yeah,
sure.
Okay, so back to Brown Acid. There's a few others left. Banana Brothers. Now, I couldn't find anything on, or Banana Bros. I couldn't find anything on this record. I did find some weird website that did have an image of it and a few other things, but some of these records are completely off the radar, even of the primary sites we typically use for this thing.
Yeah, that's a wild one. And the small worldness of some of these things, like the Osage Lute, is a really, really good example. That's a record from my own backyard, and the key, Mike Lusher was the key to opening multiple doors for different projects on that one, right? Well, the Banana Bros record, Tara, my girlfriend, found that record somewhere, and it's not on Discogs. It just doesn't have a listing. There's no entry on Discogs. So forget about buying it on there, because you can't even add it to your want list. It doesn't exist there. But when we went down the rabbit hole of tracking that band, one of the guys' names is Buddy Sklar. So somehow, some way, and I can't remember how this all came together, but Buddy Sklar, we found out that Buddy Sklar was the father of a gentleman named Corey Sklar, who has performed at the Roadhouse, at the Permanent Records Roadhouse, under the name Shocky many, many times. He's like a regular around the bar. He knows I do a Brown Acid compilation series. He knows we're into records. He never brought up the fact that his dad was in the Banana Bros. But more importantly, he never told us that his dad was in The Hook. And The Hook released 2 really great albums in the late 60s, I think both in 1968 on Uni Records. Killer Singles also, they're very much in the vein of Brown Acid, and he never mentioned that. But we figured out that Buddy Sklar was Corey's dad. He put us in touch, and we were able to license the Banana Bros single. And the more amazing part about that particular track, Suck You In, is that the Banana Bros 45, let me see if I can find it. Okay. It just says Johnny Banana on both sides. And my copy of the record has the song Johnny Banana on both sides. And that's not a great track. But Suck You In is amazing. And it exists on Tara's 45, even though neither side of the label says that it has that track on it. So it's just a total, just unbelievable set of circumstances that gets Suck You In released and hearable for the first time ever anywhere other than on the original 45.
Oh, geez. Yeah, but you must have all sorts of different webs of activity that happen around, many of these songs and these chances, these impossible chances that just happen to manifest themselves to make this happen.
Absolutely. The song Paradiddle Blues by 29.9 that I think's on the 9th trip. The story, I don't know if we shared that story on the previous podcast we did. That all came about because Tara, again, she's been very helpful in the series. My girlfriend Tara. Tara Kudlak. Let's give her full name credit here because
Yeah.
Let her use that
Air horn.
WFMU record fair. And Daniel knows her well. Well, she, her stepfather was in a horror movie in 1980 called Effects, Effects. And it's a great B horror movie. Horror buffs are like very familiar of it. It's streaming on Shudder. It's had a Blu-ray reissue and all that stuff. Well, we were watching it one night, and a song came on in the background of the scene off a boombox. And I was like, Tara, what's that? And she's like, I don't know. Let's try to figure it out. So we go down the rabbit hole, and I won't get into the various steps that led us to John Harrison, the film director, the guy behind Creepshow and so on and so forth. John Harrison, I think, was an executive producer on Effects. So they used an old recording that he and his brother made in high school because they had the rights to do it as just a background track in this scene for the movie. So through tracking him from the movie Effects, we were able to release Paradiddle Blues, this like 6 or 7 minute long game that had never been released before by a very famous guy. And what are the chances? Like,
Sure.
they're astronomically impossible odds, right?
Yeah, good thing you didn't get up to get a beverage during that part of the movie. You never would have kind of pieced it all together.
Right. That's right.
Right. Yeah. Anything could have happened. Like, why? The only reason I even watched that movie is because Tara's stepdad's in it. And then that song jumps out at us. And we went to the rabbit hole and figured it out.
I swear, you guys have angels looking after you somewhere. All right, look, I know you got to catch a flight, Lance, so we probably won't be able to get too deep into the Jordan Brothers or Lazy Day, even though that Lazy Day record, that drum beat is killer. That could, if you could isolate that would be sampled to death. So you guys have Brown Acid Volume 20, big milestone, 10 years. How are you guys celebrating Volume 20? How are you commemorating this moment?
We got a big show planned. Daniel, you want to share that information?
Yeah, we are. We're doing a big show at Permanent Records Roadhouse on 420 with 2 Riding Easy bands, Early Moods and Magic Potion. I'm pretty sure Lance will play some records in between. And then so that's the official sort of release party if you're in Los Angeles. And then,
man, I'm leaving on that day. I'm coming in.
Change your flight. Come on, let's hang out.
Oh wow,
and then we also have given all 20 volumes to a very accomplished DJ producer named Mr. Dibbs, who comes at things from a very turntablist kind of point of view and talk about isolating drum tracks and whatnot. He's taking all of the tracks and making the quintessential essential Brown Acid mixtape where there's going to be a lot of turntable like antics and breakdowns and one acapella on top of another song, and he's really going in on it. So that's going to be coming out as well, probably not by 420 because he's really going deep on it, but definitely by the end of May that will be out as well to sort of commemorate 20. And just kind of and it'll be a promo thing. We're not selling it. It's just like one of those things like, here, check this out. Like, it's just a good listening experience. Nate, I think I played you the first 5 or 6 minutes of it and you got the vibe, and it's
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
It really is killer.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So cool. That's how we're celebrating. And then we're shipping records. So that's my favorite thing to do is sell records and ship them out of the garage. So whenever anybody wants one, we're here for it.
You're a ninja with a tape gun.
That's right.
So before I let you guys go, I read the press release for Brown Acid 20, and that's fantastic. Who writes that? Who comes up with those descriptions for each song?
The brilliant words all come from the legendary Paul Major of Endless Boogie. We mentioned him earlier because he is also the guy who was behind the Feel the Music catalog, which was a mail order catalog back in the 80s and 90s, where he was selling obscure private pressings and rare psych records and so on and so forth. All of that has been compiled into a really great book of the same name that I think Anthology put together. But yeah, Paul was very successful in being a record mole and digging things up, and archaeologist back in the day, but he has been lauded for years for his brilliant mind for writing about music. He really just kind of puts some incredible, where his perspective is idiosyncratic. It's absolutely mind-blowing to hear how he writes or hear what he hears when he hears these records, because it's really special.
It's very colorful sentences. I love reading this. And again, the Brown Acid series is phenomenal. Again, congratulations, you guys.
Thanks. And then also one other thing in the writing thing, the reason that Lenny is here today is because he wrote the foreword to the book that comes in the deluxe version of the Brown Acid 20, which kind of breaks down his perspective on it. And it's fantastic. So that has not been published online anywhere, but it will be. So thank you, Lenny. I appreciate it.
My pleasure to salute you guys and tell you you're doing a great job.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man, for sure.
So Brown Acid Volume 20 is available for pre-order. It will be shipping and hopefully in your hands by 4/20, so you can
It will be, yeah.
commemorate accordingly. WritingEasyRex.com. There's deluxe versions and
Platter versions, black versions, whatever you want. We got a version.
yeah, beautiful records. Again, pressed at RTI, so there's care throughout the entire supply chain there. And again, so well done to you guys. Volume 20. These are songs that would be completely lost to time if it wasn't for you guys, finding these lost orphan tracks and caring for them and making them available. None of them are available on streaming. Again, it would have just been scattered to the winds if it wasn't for you guys shepherding them through this. So that's fantastic. Long may you run. Hopefully, we're talking 50 years of nuggets. 50 years of Brown Acid would put you at the 100th trip. Can you imagine how ugly we'll all be on that call?
Yeah. I sure can.
Yourself, dude.
I was going to say, yeah, if we're all as good looking as Lenny is, then we're going to be in great shape.
That's exactly right.
Music keeps you ever youthful. I do believe that.
That's right. That's right.
And I can only hope that as the curator of this series that I have people buying me beers all over the world.
Sure they will be.
All right, fellas. Great to see you, and congrats again.
So much.
Thank you so much, Nate.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that conversation. We could have kept going, but Lance had to catch his plane. So look, again, I highly recommend 20th Trip of Brown Acid, WritingEasyRex.com. Grab a copy of that and a whole lot more. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all you guys who are leaving positive reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That is hugely appreciated. Those of you who are sharing these episodes on social media and Reddit forums and Facebook groups, well, there's a special place in my heart for you as well. We'll be back shortly with a brand new episode, so until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.